Hello, everyone. Welcome to Ravenstar's Witching Hour. I'm your host and head witch, Miss Solaris Blue Raven, at the helm this evening. I want to give a shout-out to everybody at Revolution Radio, staff, producers, listeners, chat room, and thank everybody for tuning in tonight. And we are 100% listener-supported, so if you like what you're hearing, please click on the donate button. We appreciate your support, and thank you for any contribution you can make to this excellent station. And I trust everyone had a happy Samhain, or Halloween, as some would call it. Happy New Year to all the pagan brothers and sisters and witches out there. Hope you had a great celebration. And in the theme of Halloween and spooky tales, I have John Savage with us this evening, and he's been doing some live investigations, and he'll be sharing some details with us this evening. Also, please remember that tonight is daylight savings time. So the clocks go back 1 hour. I believe that's after 2 a.m. if I'm not mistaken. So unless you're on the East Coast or something like that. Don't quote me on it, but it's sometime tonight. The clocks go back 1 hour. So, and you are listening to Studio A. And my special guest, of course, as I mentioned before, is John Savage, and John's been on the show many times. We'd love to have him on, and let me give you his bio here. So John is the founder of the Minnesota Paranormal Investigators, which was formed in 1991. It is the longest-running paranormal group in the state of Minnesota. He has over 22 years of experience as a paranormal investigator. He has investigated many locations across the United States, including the Sunken Mile Battlefield, Fredericksburg, Virginia, the historic Mounds Theater in St. Paul, Minnesota, and many other locations in the upper Midwest. He has also investigated several locations in England and also in Cyprus. He is the co-founder of a Cross Borders Paranormal Investigations Tour that offers paranormal tours in the state of Minnesota. He has been trained by Echo Bodine for ghost busting and uses the following abilities in his cases: Clairvoyance, Clairaudience, and Clairsentience. And at times, John has performed channeling and acted as a medium. John uses a logical approach when it comes to investigating a location that is presumed haunted. He looks for the quote, normal explanation before jumping to the paranormal realm. John also became an ordained minister in 2012, and his website is nnparanormalinvestigators.com. And please welcome John to the show this evening. Hey, John, how you doing?
Happy Halloween.
Well, happy Halloween. Boo. Did you get spooked?
Nah, probably. I got more frostbite than spooked.
You did. So let me know what your adventures are. What have you been up to?
Well, it's been a quite busy year for us. We've been focusing more on historical haunts than your typical haunted homes and cemeteries and things of that nature.
Mm-hmm. That sounds fun.
So yeah, we've been quite busy. We're still working on a couple of cases that we've been working on for the past 6 years now.
Wow.
Yes.
Well, can you elaborate on that a little bit?
Oh, yeah. There's a historical location here in the Twin Cities, and some of the homes were brought in from different parts of the state to make a little town. And one of the homes that we've been investigating is very haunted. Even though it's not tied into the land, the spirits followed the house when it was moved. And the intelligence behind the spirits in this house is just amazing. You know, if you ask them a question during the EVP sessions, they will respond to you. One of the recordings that we had was a spirit saying, "Yes, this house is haunted. Now leave our room to us." Clear as day.
Wow. So where did the house come from originally?
The house came from a town called Shakopee, Minnesota, and it was only moved maybe 10 miles away to its current location. So yeah, it's that house has been keeping us busy, and plus you got some battlefields here in Minnesota. We have some historical homes that we're looking at down in southern Minnesota, so we're keeping busy.
Oh, my goodness. Yeah, no kidding. So with that one EVP recording, it sounded like they were a little annoyed, those ghosts. Not too happy about being contacted, or what do you think?
Well, I think in that case, they were getting really annoyed that we were there constantly. We would be at this one house at least 2 to 3 times a month. And I can understand their frustration. They finally got to the point where they said, "Hey, you know what? Yes, we're haunting this place. Now just leave us alone."
Right. Yeah, I can understand that. So what times do you guys show up when you're investigating? Is it a certain time of night, or is it in the daytime?
Well, with the paranormal, there really isn't a time frame. We find activity is just the same as during the daylight versus nighttime.
Okay.
Now, in this case, with this one house, The house dates back to the middle to late 1800s. Mm-hmm. And so you have to think of that mindset. So when nighttime rolls around, they're going to bed. Mm-hmm. So activity will be very, very low late at night. So we kind of start our investigations 3, 4, 5 in the afternoon, and then just go into about 10, 11 at night, and then we stop.
Yeah, that makes sense. Wow. So what else have you received besides the recording? Do you get a vibration, or have you seen anything, any imagery?
Actually, yes. One of my members, Lisa, actually got a full-body, solid apparition.
Awesome.
Of this house. Now, I've been doing this for over 22 years. I've never got a photograph the way that she got it. You can see the period clothing. You can see the pocket watch. You can see the face. And we try to recreate the image. So where was this person standing outside of the house? And we just can't do it.
Wow.
We try to determine how high he was and where he will be standing from the distance from the window, and it's just mind-boggling.
Mm-hmm. Certainly sounds like it. And is that on your website, that picture? I was looking at your ghost pictures over there at the mnparanormalinvestigators.com.
It's not on there yet. Okay. Right now I'm in the process of revamping the whole website, so some of the pictures are up there, some of them are not.
Okay, but this one's not yet, huh?
Not yet, no.
Bummer. Get it on there.
It's getting there.
Cool. That sounds
it's
awesome.
On my list of, oh, yeah. It's a really neat place, and it actually has changed a lot of my own theories about the afterlife, about the consciousness of the human soul when the physical body has died.
Right.
So it's a learning house, and we treat it with respect. And when we get our EVPs saying, leave us alone, or it's time to go, that's when we pack up.
That's what I love about you, John. You're the most sincere being out there doing this type of work, and I really appreciate that, because you're not those crazy you-know-whats that go out there and antagonize spirits and stomp and disrespect the land or the property. So I really want to applaud you for that. That's what I love about you and your team. It's really, really
thank
nice.
you.
It's very refreshing. You're very genuine. I've always liked that about you.
I mean, we've had people ask us in the past, why don't you, open this location for ghost tours? And my response is, one, that's just wrong, just because of what's out there in the media. But two, I look at it as these spirits are in this house. We're their guests. And it would be wrong for us to invite more strangers into their home. Right.
Yeah, you certainly understand the world of spirits.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, the etiquette behind it.
Well, it's funny that you brought that up. You're going to laugh about this. We were watching Doctor Who tonight, and everyone's going to start laughing because I'm a Whovian. But the story was based on a character who died, who went through like a heaven or purgatory. And one of the characters asked this other TV character guy, are you being cremated? And he said yes. And then it dawned on me why he said that, because later on in the episode, he kept saying, do you know why I'm so cold? He goes, well, yes, where's your body? Well, in a morgue. And he said, well, again, this is all from a TV show, but it'll make sense in a second, that since you just died, you're still connected to your physical body. So you will feel what that body is feeling. And I was sitting there thinking, that is disturbing. If that was the case, can you imagine those people whose bodies are being cremated?
Right.
Do the souls feel that pain from the physical body if they're still connected?
I would think so, actually. Wouldn't you? I would suspect there's still an attachment, though. I mean, there has to be some kind of a residual imprint So maybe there's an empathic connection on a psychic level. Who knows? You know, I love Doctor Who too, by the way. I think a lot of listeners, everybody who's tuning in tonight, I'm sure they really dig Doctor Who. So hey, but that makes a lot of sense to me. I mean, it doesn't seem that far fetched.
Well, it does. But can you imagine if that's the case? And are they feeling the pain of the physical body being burnt?
Right. Yeah, that would be very uncomfortable beyond the word. Well, that's what I'm wondering, what the living hell really is about. Is it about a state of consciousness? Is it about going down someplace where there are horns and a devil? Or is it just about, just being in a space of awareness of what's around you and maybe not in the most positive environment, too? That's another thing to look at.
Well, I think, and this is coming from the medium part of my experience, is that hell is not what we were taught in Bible school or by the church. I think hell is what we make it out to be.
Yep, I agree.
The pains, the sufferings, the regrets that we all have.
Mm-hmm. Yep, I agree.
So I think that's the hell that we're all afraid of.
Mm-hmm. And also, due to one's actions, I would imagine it's a karmic repercussion. So we are the judge and jury when we transfer out, for sure. Yeah, it can be very disconcerting, and that's another thing, too, when you look at the spirits. I mean, are they there by their own choosing, or are they there because they're trapped, or is something keeping them there? Is there a predator spirit there? You ever thought of that?
Yes, I have, and I'm going to go back to the case down in Minnesota.
Mm-hmm.
My understanding is with these spirits that they are aware of what they're doing. So to me, it tells me that they have chosen, which is free will, to live their life at this one location.
Mm-hmm. Right.
They see the house as it was,
mm-hmm.
not as it is now.
Right.
So I think that once a person crosses over, or once a person dies, they can choose to either move on to a higher level, or they can go to their version of heaven, which is a location that brought them happiness.
Mm-hmm. Right.
Or sorrow.
Yep.
Or maybe it's another form of consciousness, and this is just another dimensional part of the universe, and they're just carrying on life.
Right.
As they see it.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense to me. Well, you really have this down. When I think about it, do you think it's possible for, say, a new owner of a haunted house to take on the personality of the spirit imprinting the house without being possessed?
I think so, yeah. Yeah, I've had several cases where the clients move into a house that's haunted, and some of the personalities will change.
Mm-hmm.
Certain, quirks will start to pop up, especially in kids, especially younger kids. But it's kind of like settled. Now, if there was a spirit in the house that was very angry, or abusing drugs, and the family that moved in had issues similar to that spirit, I can see that spirit trying to take over or influence that person to keep drinking or keep using drugs so it can relive that sensation of being drunk or being high.
Right, yeah. Feed off the life force, so to speak, I would think, anyway.
Yeah.
Yeah, so do you pray for spirits like that? I mean, if you encounter something like that in a situation, what do you do to resolve it, or do you even try?
I think as an investigator, we are almost like a psychologist or a counselor. We're not only counseling the living, but we're also trying to help that type of a spirit to let go, to move on, to get help on the other side.
Mm-hmm.
Now, I'm not saying that there's like AA on the other side or anything, but there are spirits that can help trouble spirits who have addictions.
Mm-hmm.
Being a medium, I've come across a couple that were alcoholics in their past lives, and they were kind of feeding on people at a certain bar. And they would attach themselves to the living and go off with them.
Makes sense.
And
pictures, yeah.
you know, when you talk to your friends or someone says, yeah, he was so drunk he doesn't remember what he did. Mm-hmm. He had like a drunken blackout.
Right.
My understanding is that person, the living person's soul, is so weak at that time that the spirit that's at the bar or at that location, mm-hmm. who wants to have that fix, sees that weak person, invades the soul, pushes the person's soul out, so they can relive that feeling of being wasted or being drunk.
I so agree.
And they start doing crazy things. Mm-hmm. And then after a while, that soul will leave, the normal soul will come back in, and then the person will go, I did what when I was blacked out? I don't remember that.
Wow, so that's like a temporary possession.
Exactly.
Interesting, and that does make so much sense. Well, they call them spirits for a reason. You know, drink.
Yeah. Exactly.
Right? Yeah, you know, it's interesting with Halloween that just came around the corner, you know, it seems to me like a lot of people like to party and drink, and I wonder how many people, when they're in those altars in their makeup and their costumes, get taken over and don't even realize it.
You know, that's a good question.
Yeah, it makes
sense. You know, that would be spooky to really look into.
You know what would be even more spooky is to take one of your devices and see if you can get some EVPs off of the people while they're partying. Maybe you can do that next time. Just out of curiosity, just to see what the transmissions are that are connecting in with these people that are getting intoxicated. I don't know.
You know, that's a really good idea. Yep. I mean, we tried doing an EVP session at a bar, but with all the background noise and everything else, it was really, really hard to distinguish background noise in an EVP.
Yeah, I can.
But I wouldn't be surprised if there was something there saying, you know, I need a drink. Get me a drink.
Yeah, I wouldn't either, honestly. And I've seen people change. You know, I've seen people actually change with like antique, like jewelry or antique hats. Their personality alter as well through the frequency. So that's interesting. If that type of thing, which is inanimate, has that kind of a power over someone, you know, can you imagine what a real strong spirit would have?
Oh yeah.
Yeah,
and you know what? And I think we see it every day in the news, you know, with killings and things like that.
Yeah, what is your take on all this stuff? It looks to me like a mass possession sometimes. Do you think people are getting taken over and possessed right now?
You know, I have two thoughts on this. My first thought would be, you know, possible being possessed by something that's, I don't want to say evil or demonic, that's more of a church terminology, but something of a low, heavy energy. Mm-hmm. Now, the other possibility is when you look at a soul and soul creations, all of us has to have some sort of experience. In your past life or maybe in your future life, you might be a killer. You might go out and kill someone, or I might have been a killer. Our soul has to experience that. And the soul makes pacts with other souls saying, hey, I'm going to do this, and this is what's going to happen to you.
Mm-hmm. Right, contracts and agreements or things like that.
Exactly. Now, how much truth is in that, I don't know, but to me that kind of makes sense. Mm-hmm. But it also could be, you know, my mind's trying to make sense of something that's very tragic.
Right. Yeah. Well, it seems to me, I don't know. I just choose higher consciousness. That's my own benchmark. But I certainly see some strangeness going on across the board here. And when I think of the spirits and hauntings in general, I'm wondering if there's something that really needs to be done for them to have peace. But it sounds like, as you were saying before, they execute their free will by choosing to stay, which means then they really don't have to leave. Maybe they don't want to leave.
Exactly. Or, you know, maybe it's just another dimension that we have to go through.
Mm-hmm. Right, another highway, so to speak, right?
Exactly.
Now, do you ever get the feeling that maybe the spirits watch us like they're watching a television set?
Oh, God, I hope not.
You know, can you imagine, though? I mean, I wonder if it's like a highway where they just see the windows of this world and watch it like a movie playing.
Well, you know, I always wondered if the other side is actually the reality and we're the ghost and we're just trying to connect with each other.
Mm-hmm. Good point.
You know,
yeah.
There's so many different possibilities. with the paranormal, with hauntings.
And I think the more you dive into it, the more understanding you have insofar as how to adapt to different frequencies and dimensions and understand the relationship between you and the spirit world, which, of course, we're all connected to because we all have soul and spirit. So it's another aspect of us in another dimension, not necessarily us, but we do have the connection as we are all connected on that level. So it's really fascinating.
Well, yeah, I mean, we're all connected on that level, but we're also connected to each other, too.
Mm-hmm. Right.
And one thing I've learned in all the years I've been with the paranormal is being true to yourself. Live life for the moment, not for the regrets.
Mm-hmm.
Don't worry about the I shoulda, woulda, coulda.
Right. Yeah, appreciate life while you're here.
Yeah, exactly.
That's another thing. I think people take for granted life. It seems to me that they're so busy. They're so distracted with the busyness of survival that they forget how to appreciate and enjoy the moment. And that is so sacred, as I'm sure you're aware. Just tuning into those spaces of the moment of peace and love and happiness. And while we're here, Yeah.
Oh, exactly.
I remember something you had on Facebook. It was kind of haunting in a bad way, but I think you witnessed an accident. Not to bring it up or anything, but this was a couple of years ago, and you put it on your Facebook page, and I saw it. And it really reminded me of how precious life is and how precious it is to be with those you love and make sure that you always tell them that, because things happen, and you never know when you're going to see these people again, right?
Yep.
So
there was an accident here in Malacca where I live where it was a minivan full of kids going to school. It was an older brother driving the siblings to the local school, and he pulled out in front of a semi.
Mm.
And I was two or three cars behind the semi, and I saw a big explosion. I thought I looked like a deer flying across the road. So I got out, went down to the car, looked. I thought the kids were dead in there. I looked at the road. There was a little girl sitting there. And I remember walking up there, and I'm looking to the side, and I thought it was a deer carcass. It didn't dawn on me that was a 14-year-old girl that was thrown out of the car and just demolished by the truck.
Mm-hmm.
And I went back to the car, because by then EMT and the police showed up, and I just cried.
Mm-hmm.
And I went home and I hugged my kids.
Yeah.
Because that semi truck I was actually in front of that semi coming out of the gas station. So I was sitting at the corner waiting that truck to pass. So I started thinking, God, what if I just jumped in front of that truck? That could have been me hitting that van.
Mm-hmm.
Things happen in the spirit world for reasons.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
And that really shook me.
Yeah. Well, it was really disturbing to read it too, and I can only imagine how it felt to be that close in proximity to that kind of an energetic too. But yeah, I agree with you. You just go home and appreciate your family, and I hope people do that more often, because we live in a very strange world right now, which is getting very, very crazy, and people are getting more and more hostile. And I'm sure you're picking up on it, and it's really important to maintain that center, which is love and appreciation and respect, and just stay close to your family. And that's my advice anyway, because it's so precious. Life is really, really a precious thing.
And you're right. I mean, right now, the world that we're living in, something's coming down the pike. I don't know what it is. There's so much violence, so much death, so much fear that's being put out there.
Right.
That something's happening, or something's going to happen. And I just hope we're all prepared.
I agree. And I think the preparedness starts with spirituality, just being connected in spirit. That's part of it. But, it makes me wonder. I mean, I don't discount evil forces on the world. And I know there's something going on here where people are reacting and acting in a very evil fashion. I'm not saying everybody, but there's definitely, if you could call it possession, I would say there's they're being taken over by a very evil force, or maybe that's an aspect of them. I don't know. But I think that is something that's happening, and I'm seeing it more and more, but I'm wondering, is it because they haven't done the spiritual work that they're vulnerable? And those of us who have done the spiritual work, we're already prepared. We're already calibrated to go to higher levels of consciousness, so we can endure this, even though it's very painful to observe. What's your impression of that?
From an ordained minister point of view, I agree. I think that there is some sort of spiritual warfare being done as we speak. I mean, let's look at the Middle East. You've got this whack-out group, ISIS, which are, they're beheading Christians, they're beheading old people, they're beheading children. And I can't think that any rational human being would allow that to happen. So they have to, I think they might be being influenced to do this by something that's, on the demonic, on the devil side.
Or even like a jinn or something like that, I was thinking.
That must be one powerful one, because you think of all the people in ISIS acting as one doing all this. And the thing that concerns me is, and this is from being a spiritual person, is where's all the good people fighting these people?
I agree. Yep, I know. I'm wondering the same thing. I mean, we're standing up and being counted the way we are on radio and this and that, and just doing the good fight from day to day, but I do wonder also, where are these people that are countering the evil forces? And it seems to me like everyone's bowing down and complying to this thing that lacks all respect for humanity in any form or design, or animals, or anything. But what I did notice about that sick group is that they're feeding off of the life force. They're feeding off of blood, which is prana. They're feeding off of that energetic. They're getting a psychological high from it, which kind of cues you that they're possessed, to me anyway. It tells me there's something way wrong, because when people start feeding off of that, when they start feeling the energetic high from doing something like that, something's way wrong.
I mean, I think the last time humankind has seen something this horrific was World War II.
Yep.
Where Hitler, killed all the Jews and all the, the non-white, blue-eyed, blonde-haired people. And I think that evil, the devil himself, again, this is from a minister's point of view, has resurfaced in this group, but it's more of his little dominions, if you will.
Right. I agree.
Doing the work.
Yeah, I totally agree with you. And even coming from my background, which I embrace a lot of things in the mysteries, in ancient mystery schools, but I will say, I know evil when I smell it. And from your perspective, as coming from the minister, ordained minister, how do you counter evil forces like that? And how do you pray? Do you bring in the archangels? Do you bring in Jesus? What do you do to remove these evil things off of, well, I don't want to say off the face of the earth. I'd like to be able to do that. But what do you do?
Yeah. And, well, if I'm dealing with people on a one-on-one session, there's more prayers that we can do. I don't want to say, I don't like using exorcisms, because that's kind of a, Hollywood Catholic type deal. And people think, it's very violent. But usually just ministering to them.
Right.
Things of that nature. But something on the scale of the evilness in the Middle East, it's out of our league. The only thing that we can do is pray. And it doesn't have to be to God. It can be praying to the Great Spirit, to the earth. Trying to get that goodness back out there, trying to get the angels, believe in something. And I think right now, this world, especially in America, we either have lost our way from our religious views, because of, politics and PC, or we just give it up.
I agree with you on that one. I think the Americans, and I'm not speaking of every single American, but I think they have lost their way. I truly believe that what we used to be protected under what I call the law of grace here in America, and that was due to our morals and our values and our spiritual consciousness, whatever religion you are, the highest level of divinity. And that has been completely negated by greed, power, programming, you name it. And it's so sad. Yet there are many of us here who are still connected. I mean, we're still witnessing it. But I see that happening here right now, for sure.
You know, I had one person mention this to me on the Facebook. And he goes, well, you know, what if it's not something demonic? What if it's, you know, an alien race trying to cleanse the planet?
Mm-hmm.
It's like, boy, that's... I have a hard time with that one.
Yeah, I don't know about that either. I don't like to blame it on aliens myself. I mean, I think man has been a real culprit insofar as allowing this to happen, personally. That's my own take. But I do think it has something to do with not being connected to spirit at the highest level. And then, you know, if you're not connected and fortified in spirit, as you all know, you open yourself up to undesirable entities, whether it's a disembodied spirit or whatever it is, to take you over and control and manipulate you. And I don't know where mankind fell off that marker, where he decided that he was better than the creation, you know, the beauty of the universe. I don't know. It's just really strange to watch it all playing out. And I do trust that this can be altered, you know, that we can shift it to a more peaceful, loving world, which is really what we want.
I would love for that to happen, but with this culture that's out there, I just don't see it.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and that's pretty important.
I mean, I even tried doing some EVP sessions where I'm asking the spirits, you know, can you give me some insight? Can you tell me, are we going to make it? Are we going to be okay? I never get an answer, which, you know, it's like, boy, they just don't want to tell me the bad news.
Right.
But, you know, I think people need to open up their eyes, open up their hearts, you know, look at their neighbors and say, hey, neighbor, what can I do for you?
Oh, absolutely. Yeah, I agree with that, too. What happened to that old way of doing things, right, where handshakes actually meant something, and now everything is paranoia and fear, and yeah, it really needs to turn around. But I agree with you, too. I mean, I try to stay optimistic, but I'm telling you, it feels very foreboding. Energetically speaking, across the world. And I think we're going through a major transition right now on this planet. But I do know there's some really good people here, good souls like you, and good people doing very good work. And the fact that you're tuned into the spirit world, you know, that's a big relationship. That's something to be counted, because there's so lack of respect on so many different levels for the dead. I see it all the time. I mean, disregard for the dead. And I'd like to see more people appreciate those who have transferred out, our ancestors. Of course, we're right here at, you know, after Samhain, which is the Witches' New Year, and of course we have the Day of the Dead. And it's really important to pay attention to those beings who actually were part of the benchmark in forging the history of this world, and especially here in the United States. I mean, we have ancestors that we should be respecting in spirit and not you know, poo-hooing. You know, they did the best they could on the timeline they were on, and I think people need to acknowledge that. And, of course, I don't see that very often.
Yeah.
There's a lot of that going on. But I do appreciate the work you're doing here. But, yeah, it's very foreboding. And, you know, with that being said, I mean, with Halloween that you just experienced last night, did you see anything unusual? I mean, did you see anything that really stuck out yesterday, energetically?
Besides all the kids dressed up as Elsa from Frozen, which I thought was a little disturbing.
Yeah, no kidding.
You know, one thing I noticed was there wasn't a lot of people celebrating Halloween, which I was surprised. I think Halloween has lost its meaning. You know, down in Mexico, it's the Day of the Dead, where you honor your ancestors, your family.
Right.
Versus going out and getting candy and dressing up in these very interesting clothing. Energy-wise, I didn't feel anything. And I don't know if that was just because the environment here where I live, there wasn't that many people, or if it was something that, you know, the universe just went, it's just another day.
You know, it's interesting you say that, because the energy in the morning was pretty charged, early morning. And I did a cleansing ritual in the house, like I always do. And but I did notice that it was more charged, and then as the day progressed, it seemed to become more and more foggy, energetically speaking. Not for me, but just environmentally speaking. It's one of those things where I really didn't want to go anywhere. And normally I don't mind getting out and doing this and that, but it was one of those energetics for sure. And then you feel the energetic from the day after, which it could be just people, hung over and this and that, but literally the energetic associated is more like psychic residue buildup is the only way I can describe it. Like everybody regurgitated, and then it's that's just the way I see it anyway.
Yeah. I mean, today, from an energy level, it was very hyper, very jittery, and I think that's because everyone's energy was all over the place with candy and drinking and having a party. Tonight, I kind of closed myself off because we know all the adults are out tonight having their parties.
Yeah.
And I wish them the best of luck. I wish love and light to all those who are out there. Keep their souls protected, but it doesn't have that same eeriness like it used to many years ago.
Yeah, I think you're right. I really, really do. I've noticed that also the past few years as things progress. And it seems to me like even holidays in general just seem to have changed quite a bit. But everything's changing. Everything is changing dramatically. And that's what I'm wondering, if the hauntings have increased or if they've actually subsided over the years.
I'm going to have to say they're slowing down. I mean, as a group, we're keeping ourselves quite busy, but we're looking at things now from a more historical point of view, learning from the past.
Right. Yeah,
the cases for homes where people calling up saying, hey, I'm being haunted or I'm being scratched, I don't see it a lot like we used to. So I'm beginning to think it's either dying down or that our group is so focused on different aspects of the paranormal, we're just not part of that type of realm anymore. We kind of elevated to a different level.
Right. I think that's good. Yeah. I like the historical haunts. I like the stuff you're doing right now. Well, to me, it seems like the lower astral stuff, when people are getting, having experiences like that in your house, or their house rather, I think maybe they're just inviting it in on some level. So, In
that case, yes. I mean, I've noticed ever since TV shows like Ghost Hunters, Ghost Adventures, since they came out, especially on Facebook, I see a lot of people saying, hey, I've been attacked by demons and scratches. And it's like, well, how much of that is really something that you think is happening to you?
Right. I agree.
I mean, in all the years that I've been doing this, I've seen some cases where the client's been scratched. I've been hit.
You've been hit?
I've been hit. I broke my tooth once.
Oh, my gosh. Can you elaborate on that?
We were doing, this was many years ago. We were doing a house in St. Paul, I believe. And there was an entity in the basement. Yes, it was in St. Paul. There was an entity in the basement who was very violent. And I went down there as a medium to confront this entity, try to remove him from the house. And I could feel the pressure. I feel like someone's like hitting. And so the feeling was, it wasn't like I could look at my body and see like a physical punch, but I could feel it. And I remember walking to the back room in the basement, open up the closet, and I remember my head being jerked back. And then it's like, oh, what happened? And I could taste like a little blood, thinking, okay, maybe I just bit my tongue, and a piece of my wisdom tooth came off.
Wow.
Now, that scared me. I walked away from the house because apparently I was out of my league at that time. And it took me a good couple of months, about 6 to 7 months, to get back in to do that house again. Because I had to question myself, am I prepared? Was I prepared? Did I feel confident enough? Apparently it was something that I wasn't ready for.
Exactly. That's pretty powerful. So you finally resolved that?
We got him to calm down, yes.
That's good. Did he ever figure out what the history was behind that? I mean, was it somebody who died in the house, or does anybody ever figure that out?
My understanding was it was a person who used to live in the house. He did pass away, but not in the house. Mm-hmm. And he just returned. He was just a grumpy old man. And he took me as a intruder.
Oh, interesting.
Which, if I was a spirit in the house and I all of a sudden I'm sensing someone,
right?
I'm going to defend my house.
Mhm. Yeah.
So
interesting. That's a very interesting perspective. And once again, you get back to that parallel of who belongs where. I mean, are we the ones that are the ghosts, and the ghosts are actually the ones that have moved on and are living? Boy, it gets complex, doesn't it?
Well, yeah, and that's why, shows like Ghost Adventures, for example, they're teaching the next generation the wrong way of doing stuff in the paranormal. Mm-hmm. You don't pick a fight.
I agree.
You don't be rude to them, because you might get an entity that's going to turn around and just kick you in the backside.
Mm-hmm. Totally.
Then what are you going to do?
Right, and I suspect these aren't even the big McCoys. I mean, these aren't even the real big ghosts or spirits. I mean, these are just probably regular spirits. I mean, wait till you get one of those major, whatever. I'm sure there are other forces out there they don't want to tangle with, and they probably will eventually encounter those if they keep bullying like they are.
Well, yeah, the spirits that I worry about are the hidden ones. These are the ones that, they might, let's say you're an investigator, a brand new one. You're at a place that's haunted, and you have a dark entity there. The entity's not going to come out and fully attack you. It's going to kind of gnaw at you for a while. It's going to do little things. It's going to slowly start taking over, start changing your personality. Mm-hmm. To the point where, you won't notice it. It's like putting a frog into a pan of warm water and slowly turning up the heat.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. So what are the... Oh, go ahead.
Oh, go ahead.
I was going to ask you, what are the warning signs of a ghost attack? Then can you elaborate a little bit more on that?
It varies with different cases. For physical attacks, I mean, if you're getting scratches, you're getting pinned down while you're sleeping. If things are being thrown at you, that's another sign. Mm-hmm. Being pushed.
Wow. So is this a poltergeist or a regular spirit we're talking about?
Regular spirit.
Wow. So they can... Oh, interesting. Go ahead.
A poltergeist is not a true ghost. A poltergeist is done by a living person who's changing the environment.
Yeah, that makes sense.
By using their own psychokinesis energy, PK energy. Mm-hmm. So they become the agent. And usually with a poltergeist case, we notice that it's usually an adolescent female just going into puberty.
That's interesting. Never a male, or is it just a female?
It can be male, but most of it is females.
Wow.
That we've encountered. And the signs that we can tell it's the poltergeist is, one, is the kid nearby when the events happen? Mm-hmm. If the answer is yes, then we ask, okay, what is happening with the kid? Is the kid having a temper tantrum? Are they fighting with the parents? Are they upset? Are they mad? Are they slamming doors? If we get a yes in that, then we notice that, then we can say, yes, that's going to be a poltergeist because that child is now affecting or creating the haunting. Mm-hmm.
Wow.
Not a spirit.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it makes a lot of sense. So how do they rectify that? Do they teach the child to just focus and more mental discipline, or how does that work?
Again, it varies with the client. Some of the cases we've done is, we've talked to the parents, have them channel the energy for the kid to do something else. Mm-hmm. Also, we explain to them they are going through puberty. There's a lot of energy that they're giving off. Mm-hmm. And that you're just going to have to kind of work through it. Know that know the warning signs. If you see them working themselves up into a frenzy, start to back down.
Mm-hmm.
Just let them go, let them cool down, take them out of the house, let them go upstairs, and more than likely nothing will happen.
Mm-hmm. Wow, that's fascinating. Have you ever encountered a poltergeist where there wasn't a child involved?
Yes.
Wow.
It can be done with adults.
Mm-hmm.
We had one case, but the adult was very, very sensitive from a medium point of view. So he was affecting the environment. And with that, we kind of just start teaching him how to channel his energy by doing meditations, listening to, chanting music, focuses his energy into the spirit, into the earth, trying to diffuse him, trying to discharge his energy into the earth itself. So there's different ways from an adult we can channel their energy, but with a kid, it's really hard.
Oh, I can imagine. Yeah. Well, it makes a lot of sense. I mean, we do manifest our realities. We are powerful psychic beings, and I can only imagine that some people, just amp up, and then it just gets all over the map. So that's fascinating. Yeah. But it helps in the sense that you understand the mechanics behind what a poltergeist is, and how that it's not connected to a quote unquote haunting. It's the person in the house, and I think that's interesting. That's good to know.
Yep. And the other ways that we can determine if it's a haunting or a poltergeist is our EVP sessions. Mm-hmm. If we're not getting any EVPs during the events, then it's nothing. It's not a spiritual haunting. It's tied into the kid. Right.
That makes sense. Yeah. And how often do you get the EVPs when you go and do your investigations?
I'm not a big fan of telling everyone 100%. But 98% of the times I go on investigations, I will get at least 5 to 10 EVPs.
Wow, that's pretty good.
Right off the bat.
My goodness. And is that you that does the initial communication?
Myself and other team members will do the EVP sessions separately.
Wow.
The case that we're working on down in southern Minnesota is this beautiful old Greek revival house built in 1855.
Yeah, you sent me a picture of that. Yeah, it's beautiful.
Yep, beautiful house. God, I want to buy this house.
Yeah.
And the first time we were there, I got an EVP recording of a woman saying, "Hello, Scarlet." So we went back a couple weeks ago, and I walked up to the front door because the house is locked up. And I asked the question to the female spirit, "Is this your house?" The response I got was, "This is my husband's house." But the answer came before my question.
Oh, interesting.
Which happens a lot of times because the spirit knows the question that I'm forming in my head. Because I'm standing there going, okay, what questions am I going to ask? Oh, I'm going to ask this question.
So you don't need the device.
No, but it's nice to hear it.
Right. Well, no, that's true. But isn't that amazing? Isn't that interesting?
Oh yeah, it was really great. And now we have a name that we can go by. We have a whole family history from this one house. And as we're walking around this house, we're getting EVPs both from a female and a male spirit saying, "You need to leave. Go away."
Wow. That's pretty wild.
And we didn't listen because we wanted to play. And one of the equipment that I have, which is it's kind of like a Kinect camera system for the Xbox, the whole thing malfunctioned, including the tablet that's connected to it.
Oh, interesting. Yeah, so I guess they had some interference, huh?
I think they were trying to say, you know what? We've told you 3 times now to leave.
Right.
And didn't listen, so they messed up my gear.
Well, that's not too bad, though. At least, just an electrical glitch, right? Could be.
Well, I had to send the device back to the person who made it so they can put the programs back onto the tablet.
Oh, wow.
Because it drained the battery, and when the battery came back up, the software was gone. It went into a restore mode.
Interesting. So do they feed off of the electricity, or are they running interference? Which one is it, do you think?
I think they do both. I think they more likely will drain the energy from the environment. Mm-hmm. And since a battery is just a portable energy, they're just draining that at the same time.
Right, and that makes me wonder, with all the electricity we have now and all the grids, I'm sure it's just like a hot spot for any type of paranormal activity because they probably feed off of that energetically.
You know, with the high EMF coming off the power lines, I would have to agree, but I haven't come across any evidence to support that theory yet.
Have you done a lot of research there?
When we're doing our investigations, we do look at the high power lines near the house. Mm-hmm. We also look at the power lines coming into the house. Are the activities tied in to that location of the house or not?